Welcome to the video for this week. We again apologize because we know that probably some of you won't view that normally are viewing because we didn't get the video out on Sunday, but things have been very busy as my new grandbaby was born and I was out of state, and so that kind of caused issues with delay. Just got back into town today, and I'm going to try to do a video, so I'm a little bit jet lagged to say the least, but we're going to try to do a video, talk about some things that have happened in the past, some things that happened more recently, and try to fit that all in as we talk about take heart, spring is on its way. Can you believe that? Spring is actually on its way. Luke chapter 21 verses 27 to 28. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. Sometimes we didn't want that to happen. Sorry. Sometimes we can look at circumstances around us and we can read verses like what I just read out of Luke chapter 21, verses of great hope, by the way. After Luke chapter 21 covers so many terrible things that are coming, then it gives us that great promise of hope to look up because our redemption draws nigh. But it's sometimes hard to see that redemption coming when things are going on around us. It's winter time, and anybody that knows me knows that I do not like winter at all. And we have these fake starts that happen. I've actually been laughing as I have seen people in their shorts already outside. But just a few days ago, my state of Iowa, while I was gone out of the state, we were having over 50-degree temperatures where I was, and there was huge amount of snow that fell across Iowa. And now the beautiful weather that I came back in, we just had sunshine and beautiful weather, but in a few days they're calling for the mess to return again. So we often have those things and you start to get pumped up and you think, well, maybe spring is actually coming. But then the winter comes right back in again. It takes very little snow and cold to turn me away from the winter concept and to start feeling that proverbial call to Hawaii. Those of you that have been around me for years know that I have laughed about that so many times through the winter seasons that I teased and said I just knew that the Lord was calling me to Hawaii, even though He has never done that. He's never even called me to much of any place warm. I went to Arizona a few years ago, and they had one of the worst winters that they had had in a long time as I was there in Arizona, so it didn't help very much. But one thing that can keep us going is in the middle of winter, in the middle of all the things, the snow and the ice and all of those things, is that we know that in a few short weeks, spring is on its way. It really is. The blossoms will begin to return to the trees. The flowers will begin to bloom. I know there's those naysayers, and I have been one of those naysayers in the past that claim that they don't think winter is ever going to end. Last year, we had the furnaces on into the end of June, so it seemed like it wasn't going to, but it will. Eventually, it ends. I think sometimes God has a sense of humor and He's just saying, so global warming, huh? Let me show you some global warming. But I know, I'm going to get myself in trouble before this message is over. I know that for certain. The promise of something better that is on the way gives our hearts hope. Just as the verses that we read, that recognition that Jesus is coming again, that gives us hope. Even when we look at the terrible circumstances going, this world has been so made a mess of over the last few years. But we have that hope. Jesus is coming. And when hope is gone, the heart dies. So the devil does everything that he can to try to take hope away. But we need to be aware of what the devil is doing and how he does it. In 2 Corinthians 2:11 it says, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." By the way, when Paul is talking about this, he's actually talking about forgiveness. If we don't forgive through the person of Christ, that unforgiveness will open the door to Satan to take a place in our hearts. And he will do it immediately. We must not let that take effect in us, no matter what happens around us. A few years ago, 19 terrorists took over planes in our country. They flew 2 of them into the World Trade Center, killing thousands. Jane Fonda, one of the biggest traitors in the history of this country, wasn't out crying out about those innocent deaths. They flew another plane into the Pentagon, killing numerous more, and Sean Penn wasn't out crying out about the deaths that took place there. They would have flown the other one into something, we're not sure what, but they would have flown the other one into something if not for the heroes that put it into a field in Pennsylvania. All over the world, Muslims celebrated. Not the radical left-wing ones that you all hear about all of the time, but all over the world, in our own cities, they were out shooting guns in the air and celebrating the death of thousands. And George Clooney was nowhere out protesting that action. You see, that they want to protest when it fits into their agenda. But they say nothing when the actions of so many cause so many problems. Where I just was, there was a protest going on against police officers. The police officer had shot a person and eventually ended up on unpaid leave. Then the body cam showed that it was actually the defendant's own gun that they had fought over, and the gun went off and shot him. But everybody was talking about how bad the police were, and when they come out with the truth, everything went silent. Because that's how our world operates. Our president at the time when this took place in 2001, who was a Republican, by the way, came on TV and said Islam is a religion of peace. It's like the snake story. You remember the snake story? I know, I already said I'm going to get myself in trouble. You remember the snake story where the snake promises the guy, if you will just carry me down the mountain, I will be your friend for life. And the guy says, I can't do that. You're a snake. And the snake says, no, I promise. I will never harm you. Just carry me down the mountain and I will be your friend for life. So finally the guy gives in, picks the snake up, carries him down the mountain. When they get down to the bottom of the mountain, the snake coils and strikes and bites him and poisons his body. The man, as he's laying on the ground dying, says, I thought you promised me that you would not bite me. The snake said, I'm sorry, I'm a snake. That's what I do. That's the reality. Maybe you want to believe in little fairy tales where little mice pull thorns out of the paws of lions and they become buddies for life, but that isn't reality. The reality is the mouse is going to be a little mid-morning snack. Why? Because it's a lion. And that's just the reality. These ones that do these things are under the influence of evil. And that is the reality. in the mid-1960s, they were saying we were going to run out of food by the year 2000. This is 2023, by the way. We would all die because of overpopulation and food shortages that was coming against us. This was the hippies of the day that was saying, oh, there's doom and gloom coming around the corner because we're all going to die by 2000 of not having enough food. Now they try to close down McDonald's because we're all too fat. See, it's all just a phony game. Arnold Schwarzenegger, that was the governor of California at that time, was outlawing fat, or at the time that I was writing this, because he was outlawing fat oils because we were all too fat. But in 2000 or in 1960, they was saying we was all going to starve to death. The temperature increased by a whopping 0.7 of 1 degree in the past 100 years. Oh man, call out the forces. We are in for floods and famine and devastation. In the next 100 years, it's going to go up another 0.7 of 1 degree. Outlaw the SUVs. But 30 years ago, they were saying we were all going to freeze to death because of a coming ice age. They can't even tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. How many times has the weatherman said, oh, this is what's going to happen, and nothing? They can't even tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, but they're telling you this is what's going to happen 100 years from now, or 40 years from now. This is what's going to happen, and they are wrong. Now, Mike, how did you get off on that? Just hang with me. Believe me, I'm not lost. I know where I'm going. We buy into it. We buy into what we are told. One NBA basketball player years ago was forbidden to take part in the All-Star festivities because he said he didn't like homosexual lifestyle. Oh, what a hateful person. Sean Hannity said, I disagree with him for making such hateful statements. I have pictures of gay pride marches where they held up signs saying, feed the Christians to the lions, or bring back the arenas, or abort George Bush. Where was Hannity then? Where was he at? Where was his outrage over a statement being made that was a hateful statement? Where was that outrage? You see, it isn't one side of things. This goes clear through because they're all in operation together. The Bible says the day will come when they think they do God a favor by killing you. And that time is here when we are calling evil good and good evil. Our enemy is plotting to destroy us. And we think he's a good guy that wants to make peace with us. It's that reality. Evil is a reality in our world. Psalm 52:3, thou lovest evil more than good, and lying rather than to speak righteousness. Sometimes, I don't know about you, but I just want to give up. I get tired of trying to be a voice in the middle of all of these things happening around us. Do you? It seems like, and right now, there's a thing, and I'm going to write about this in the newsletter. I'm not going to take a lot of time to talk about it, but we have an apparent revival that is not only breaking out at Asbury in Wilmore, Kentucky, but it's breaking out in other areas. Somebody showed me a video, even in Israel, of people singing about Yeshua. That's Jesus. That's Hebrew for Jesus. And it could be a phenomenal thing. But when you look around you and you see all of the things happening, and you see how Christendom, not Christianity, that was a misstatement, but Christendom, the attitude of Christendom that is here today. And we need to get back to business and stop having revival. We've lost the essence of the presence of God and what God can do when His Shekinah glory begins to shine around us, because we don't want His Shekinah glory. We want the status quo. We want everything to fit into our plan. Psalm 49 verses 5 to 20. I'm only going to just read one little portion. I encourage you to read it. Wherefore should I fear in the days of evil, when the iniquity of my heels shall compass me about? Psalm 23:4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Romans 12:19 to 21. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. That's put wrath in its place. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him to drink. Did you hear what I said? If your enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him to drink. For in so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Don't be overcome with evil. How can we not be overcome with evil, Mike, in the middle of a society that has lost its mind? It's gone crazy. And I can go on with these different things, because we know spring is coming. We know spring is coming. As we went through this thing, and I asked my daughter if it was okay if I talked just a little bit about this. Over the last few months, it has been a really, really tough time. And even after the baby was born, the baby was supposed to be premature, and they was setting up with all of these things, and then she didn't come premature. She actually came past her due date. And then after she came, and my daughter's blood pressure shot through the ceiling, and they did the first hearing test on the baby and said she failed completely. And so your heart goes out from underneath of you, and then the next day the blood pressure came back down, and we're still having issues with that. But the second hearing test, the baby passed with flying colors. And then a couple of days later, when the jaundice readings was way below any concern, they didn't even blink at it. And all of a sudden they were so high that they thought they were going to have to put her back in the hospital again. And you just feel like that you're on this emotional roller coaster, just up and down and up and down. How did we deal with that? We prayed. We were praying all along. Several of you were praying. We had people all over the country praying. And there's the promise. You know in your heart that whatever report you get, whatever it is that you hear, whatever circumstances are going on around you, how much the prices are going up, how much you are wondering how you are going to meet all of the needs. Spring is coming. Jesus is coming. Jesus has not lost control. Jesus is absolutely in control. I was reading in one of the devotionals that I'm doing this year, Experiencing God by Henry and Richard Blackaby. And some of you have probably read their book that is out under that same title. The beauty in the way God designed the four seasons is that though each one is distinct, they all work together to bring life and growth. Spring is a period of freshness and new life. Summer sees growth and productivity. Autumn is a time for harvesting the rewards of past labors. Winter is the season of dormancy and closure. Each season has its own unique beauty and makes significant contribution to life. Just as God planned seasons in nature, He planned seasons in life as well. Life has its springtime, when we begin new things and look excitedly towards the future. Summer comes and we work diligently in the heat of the day at all that God has assigned us. With autumn comes the fruition of things begun at an earlier time in our lives. Winter brings an end to a particular period in our lives. Sometimes winter brings hardships, but we remain hopeful, for another spring is just around the corner. In God's perfect design for our lives, He has planned for times of fruitfulness and activity. He will also build in times of quiet and rest. There will be times when He asks us to remain faithful during the same work day after day. But there will also be periods of excitement and new beginnings. By God's grace, we will enjoy seasons of harvesting the fruit of our faithfulness. By God's grace, we will also overcome the cold winters of heartache and grief. For without winter, there would be no spring. Just as it is with the seasons of nature, these seasons in our lives work together to bring about God's perfect will for each one of us. So, Mike, how do we deal with everything that is going on around us? The men's hearts are failing them for fear. Love is waxing cold. People are still believing this stuff about this prophetic end-time revival. If you read Acts chapter 2, Peter makes it clear the end-time revival spoken of by Joel was the day of Pentecost. What is going to happen in our time and age is a great falling away. And that falling away is happening. Major denominations are imploding, fighting over stuff that would not have even been thought of 30 years ago. And as we face these circumstances, and sometimes the harder we work, the more it seems like that so little gets accomplished. Sometimes God calls us to just keep working in the trenches, to just keep doing the same things day after day. And then sometimes He brings about that exciting time where we move into His plan and we see wonderful things accomplished. Maybe that's what's happening at Asbury. I hope so. I'm praying that the revival is just as genuine as it was in 1970 in the same auditorium when God poured out His Shekinah glory. I fear that all the people going are going to disrupt what the students are going through, and I hope God doesn't let that happen. I hope the revival spreads just like it did in 1970. What I'm saying to you is in the middle of a cold, dark winter, the snow, the ice, the cold, the below zero temperatures, when it seems like that nothing is working, God moves. Take heart. Spring is on its way. I can't wait. I actually rolled down the window on part of the trip home today. I about froze doing that because it was windy and it was blowing into my face, but it felt so good. It felt so good. When you're in the middle of a winter in your life, when you're in the middle of circumstances that you don't like or you don't want to be dealing with. When there's sickness and pain and death and financial crisis and all of those kinds of things going on around you, stop and take heart. Spring is on its way. I don't know when Jesus is coming back. I don't have any idea. It could be tonight. It could be tomorrow. It could be 6 months from now. It could be 100 years from now. I don't know. But I do know he's coming. So whatever might be going on, I can always look up, because my redemption draws nigh. And if you are saved today, if you know him today, if you have taken him as your personal Savior, if you have repented and turned your life into his hands, you have that same hope. So I keep telling myself, I'll tell myself that again as these next few days play out. And one of the days, I don't know what day it is, but one of the days we're supposed to have a low of 2 degrees again. And when I go out in the morning for breakfast, I'll tell myself again, spring is coming, and soon the grass will turn from brown to green, and the blooms on the trees will return, and the flowers will come out. And what I love the most is warm. Spring is coming. Take heart. Take heart, fellow Christian, for whatever you are going through. The trumpet will soon sound, and Jesus is coming back. Don't lose heart. Don't give up. Don't back down. Don't allow Satan to overcome you with evil, because you can keep from it. For spring is on its way. God bless you. Thank you for watching.